All right, we can begin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Perkerson Elementary School's Go Team meeting, where we will follow the agenda as it has been emailed to you and publicly noticed. I'm pleased to call this meeting of the Perkerson Elementary School Go Team to order. Our first order of business is to call roll. The secretary will now take the roll.
Ms. Bixler,
Here.
Pastor Poole,
Here.
Ms. Walker,
Here.
Ms. Holmes,
Here.
Ms. Morgan, I'm here, and Ms. Muhammad.
Here.
Thank you, thank you. Ms. Bixler, we do have a quorum, and we are ready to start our meeting.
Okay. So our first order of business is to approve the agenda. This was provided to you and copies are here. Please take a moment to review the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
The agenda is also on the screen, just in case you did not receive a copy. There's a copy of it right in front of you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda.
May I have a second?
Morgan seconds that.
All right. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay or raise your hand. Any abstentions, please identify yourself or raise your hand. All right. We will review and approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting. The minutes have been provided to you. Are there any corrections?
Do not believe there are any corrections at this time.
All right, hang on. I'm fighting with my pages here. Okay. All right. If there are no corrections, may I have a motion to approve the previous meeting's minutes?
I move that we approve the previous meeting's minutes.
May I have a second?
I second that we approve the minutes.
Thank you,
All
Ms.
right.
Walker.
All of those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 All of
Aye.
those opposed say nay or raise your hand. Any abstentions? Identify yourselves or raise your hand. All right. All right, Mr. Ford, you'll have to let me know. I'm just going through the script. If it doesn't apply, just
So we're going to
let
move
me
right
know.
into the discussion items next,
Okay. Let's see.
because our discussion items will include our strategic plan review and update, because we don't really need to update it. We've already done that, and we've already
Right.
ranked the strategic priorities. So we're just that'll be a part of the presentation today.
Okay, so we will now move to the discussion items on our agenda.
All right, guys. So there is a presentation here in front of you. If you guys will take a look at your screens. We don't really need to do any updates to our strategic plan, because our strategic plan we've updated in previous Go Team minutes. We did make one adjustment to the third goal around decreasing the percentage of chronically absent students. And so that's really the only update that we made. The rest of them we kept the same, and we also kept the rankings the same. We're going to go ahead and begin with our discussion items for today. And we need to talk a little bit about the budget today so that we can get a final approval and vote on that. So I'm going to be sharing some information with you. Again, I would just like to ask that um, as I am sharing this information with you, that you remember that these are personnel decisions, not people decisions. So this is not like this person or this person. And so we want to be careful about providing me with an opportunity to have these conversations with staff members before they hear it through the grapevine and we create undue anxiety. Um, so we are in the feedback meeting today and the approval meeting so that you all are able to provide me with any additional feedback or any, and we're going to vote to approve the budget today. And so let's go ahead and get started. These are our norms for our time together today. We don't ever have any problem with any of these things because my Go team is amazing. We are at the budget development process phase right now, step 4. So during our budget allocation meeting today, the first Go Team meeting, the principal, I'm going to provide you with an overview of the budget and the position allocations. We'll talk a little bit about that as well as the turnover and signature funds. We need to go over this today. Our why is to have a meeting that provides you with an opportunity or me with an opportunity as the principal and the Go team to ensure that there's alignment on the school's key strategic priorities, gain a deeper understanding of the budget and position allocations, discuss the proposed request for signature program funds, and provide input to drive the development of the draft budget. So what I will tell you before I start with our budget meeting today is we are in a budget season unlike any other budget season that I have ever been a part of. We started this budget season with the superintendent speaking to us about a $100 million deficit that currently Atlanta Public School is in. With that being said, there are cuts across every school in the district, and there were some significant cuts to Perkerson Elementary School's budget. One of those cuts came from our per pupil, allocation. Our per pupil allocation was less because we are projected to have 300 students, and last year we were projected to have 327 students. So 27 students times about $10,000 plus dollars. It's more, you'll see in an additional slide what the actual amount is how much we are going to be receiving less because our per pupil allocation, our allocation is less than it was by 27 students. So just keep that in mind as we talk. Again, with the budget development process, we want to make sure that we keep all of our decisions aligned around those priorities and goals that we have. Goals around improving the proficiency of students in reading and math, as well as decreasing in attendance. So you all know what it looks like. Yes.
Yeah, just a question. With that drop in that 27 student enrollment, if we're fortunate and we were to gain those 27 students back when we had our first count, does the district then go back and provide some of those additional funds that we did lose?
They do. And we have to receive those students before a certain date. So what will happen is that before leveling, if those students have come any above that, we will receive that money back. But the opposite is also true. If we have less than that, so let's say we were to get 285 kids, they would then go back into our budget and subtract 15 more times the per pupil allocation.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
So thank you for asking that question. All right. So this is the school allocation tab. This is just a snippet of what that tab looks like. If you take a look at that first column where it says fiscal year 2026, this is for this upcoming year. I want to draw your attention to the fourth row where it says fiscal year 2026 projected enrollment, and you can see that it says 300. And if you go right over to the right, you'll see fiscal year 2025, which was this year. We were projected to have 327 students. And if you go over again, you'll see that that's a change, of course, of 27 students. If you go underneath that, you'll see that the per pupil allocation is around $21,325. So the number of students who do not um, enroll times that amount of money is what is subtracted from our budget. Are there any questions about the allocations for this year? All right, if there aren't any questions about the allocations, I'm going to what I'm going to show you next is the summary tab of the budget, and the summary tab basically has what has been earned. If you see in that light blue column there, right after the position, it'll say how many positions has been earned. So it'll say 2 or 3, how many has been earned, and then how many has been funded. So the funded is how much money was actually given for that position by the district. And then the staffed is how many I decided we need in that position, regardless of earned or funding. Okay. So I want to just make sure that that part's clear. So the earn part is how many we earn based on the number of students that we have. Funded is how much money was actually given to us for that position. And then staffed is how many I have actually placed in that position based off of what I perceive the needs to be for our student body for the upcoming school year. So in the past, there has been enough funding that maybe I was funded for 3 of a position, but I might have staffed it at 4. There's no money for that this year. So you'll see that the funding and the staffing for the most part matches. And in some places, unfortunately, it meant a decrease in services because we were only funded for a percentage of a position, which would have been different than what we were funded for this school year. So before I go ahead and show you ours, does anyone have any questions about how that works? All right. So here's the first page. You can see right there where it says, for example, teacher kindergarten. And if you go over, each teacher is $127,556. We were funded for 3, and I have staffed 3. How many I have staffed is in the yellow column. I would like to draw your attention if you would go down to where it says teacher art 1 through 5. And if somebody could tell me, go on over, how much does it say we were funded for? Does anyone see that? Can anyone
Is
help
that
me?
one?
It says 0. We were funded for 0.
No, no. Look right,
Okay.
go to that line where see it says 120. If you go to the teacher art 1 through 5, and then
Okay.
you'll see like the position number, and then it says 1,000, then it says 1180, then it says
Uh-huh.
cost, and then right next, you see that number right there, 0 point what?
80.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's an 8. Okay, it's so small.
that's an 8. Yeah, yeah. So that means, guys, that we were funded for art for 4 days of a teacher. Anybody know anybody who would accept a position for 4 days?
No.
No. So you can see that I staffed that for 1.0 because it's very difficult to find a match for 4 days of work with 1 day that you're not working. And also it would be very difficult to schedule that for the building. We would not be able to, not that we would not be able to, it would be difficult to. And also, a part of our CCRPI is ensuring that we provide the fine arts to all of our students. That's a part of what goes into that number. And in order to do that, I feel like we need to have an art teacher, a music teacher, and a PE. Those teachers, those classes all are beyond the core, and all of those classes count towards that in our CCRPI. But you can see that those classes, if you look down to music, same thing. If you go down to physical ed, same thing. If you go down to world language, same thing. We were only funded for 0.5 of a gifted teacher. And so I've only staffed 0.5 of a gifted teacher. So what that means is the gifted teacher will no longer be a full-time position for next year because we did not have enough funding to pay for the full-time position. Any questions?
So the gifted teacher would be 2 days?
The gifted teacher would be 2.5 days.
Okay.
So what that would probably mean is we would be looking for a gifted teacher that we would share with another school that also has a 0.5 gifted teacher, and they would come to us like Monday and Wednesday and go to the other school Tuesday and Thursday, and then like a half a day at our school in the morning on Friday and a half a day at the other school on Friday at Perkerson.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions? All right, this is the next page. So last year we were funded 6 EIP teachers. We were only funded 4 this year, so you can see that we have 4 that we were funded and 4 that I've staffed. So we will not have 2 of our EIP teachers that we have had currently. Oh, I don't, let me go back to this one. 3rd grade is another grade level you can see here. 3rd grade has 2 teachers there, 2 that we were funded, 2 that we were staffed. Last year we had 3, so we will also be decreasing a 3rd grade teacher as well.
So there were 3 you are staffing 2 for next year.
For what, Ms. Holmes? I'm sorry.
What grade did you just say? 3rd, I think.
For 3rd grade, we were funded 2, and so I've staffed 2. But last year we were funded 3, and I staffed 3.
Oh, okay, I got it.
And so with EIP, we're going to be decreasing EIP from 6 EIP teachers to 4 EIP teachers.
Okay, I now have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so with this budget, this will, I guess, cause more students on the less teachers.
Yes, ma'am. There will be the student to teacher ratio will increase.
But it's do you mind me asking by how much?
So I can't really say by how much at this time because it really depends on the enrollment that we receive next year. Does that make sense? Like once
Right.
we
Because they'll be pretty much enrolling like over the summer and stuff, correct?
right. And so we won't know, like kindergarten, a lot of times we don't get the full enrollment of kindergarten until much further into the school year.
Okay.
And so it will really depend on how many students enrolled to divide them up amongst the teachers that we have.
So well, I guess we won't really know that information either until we get the kids into the classroom to see what they do and don't know. Okay.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Mohammed. All right, this is the next slide. Again, you can see, for example, we have 3 paraprofessionals that are funded for kindergarten, and I've staffed 3. I just want to draw your attention because this is a change that we're going to go over to the last line on this slide where it says bookkeeper. We were only funded for next year for a .5 bookkeeper. I have not staffed that position at all. So you can see right next to it says .5 and then under staffing it's blank. It's because I have not staffed that position at all. Does anyone have any questions? All right, here's the next slide. And the next slide. Excuse me. All right. So, before we leave the staffing tab, there are a couple of things that I wanted to talk with you all about tonight. Um, our budget is currently not balanced. What that means is that I have spent more on personnel than we actually have money in the budget to afford. In order for us to have I have to have a balanced budget by tomorrow. So what I'm asking the team to talk with me a little bit about is a couple of options that we have. The first option is to um, the first option is to share a social worker with Finch Elementary School. So instead of paying $154,000, I would pay $74,000 and keep $74,000. And we would have one social worker that would spend part of their time here at Perkerson and part of their time at Finch Elementary School. We serve the same children for the most part. Finch is right around the corner from here. And so I feel like that would be a feasible ask, but I wanted to kind of talk with my team about that today to find out where your minds were as it related to that position. And remember, we're talking about the position and not the person.
Do you see that impacting our students in a negative way if we have a social worker here half the time?
I do not.
Okay.
I think that some of the responsibilities, what I did is I went and took a look at what the daily responsibilities are of the social worker and thought a little bit about like who's already doing some of those responsibilities and who could do those responsibilities. And I feel like we could definitely cover the responsibilities. There's some that are specific to the social worker that only someone with that credentialing could take care of, but some of them are not. There are some things that the MTSS coordinator, that the coaches, that the counselor, that there are other people in the building that could take care of those responsibilities, and that would by sharing that position, we would make back $74,000. So are there like let's talk a little bit about it. I kind of want to hear from you all because I do need to go I have to finish the budget tomorrow and I didn't want to put that was a bigger one in my opinion and I wanted to make sure that I was able to get some feedback from the team before I went ahead with that and made that request with the social worker with
With
the
that,
I,
superintendent.
sorry, go ahead, Miss Morgan.
I was just going to ask is if we're, I want to make sure our children are taken care of, which I know that's your ultimate goal. In addition, if we had a need, if the social worker weren't on campus, if we're sharing, do we have that flexibility then to pull that social worker and say, hey, we have a crisis, we need you to come over here,
Yeah, and
and
that's
or
one of the
vice
reasons why I
versa?
thought
That
about that. Yes, ma'am. One of the like this year, we've had several occasions where either our social worker has gone over to Finch to support if that social worker was absent, or the social worker at Finch has come over to Perkerson to support if our social worker was absent. So we would definitely have that flexibility.
I think as long as our children are covered, and I think we do a good job of that now, I think that it would be a good idea to share.
I
Mr. Porter,
agree.
what
Mr. Poole?
what um what on your critical staffing um needs or assessment, how did you target the social worker position? Was it because of the pay, or was it because of what was the reason, the rationale behind it?
Yes, sir. That's a great question. I think with where it started was specifically me looking at how I could gain some of those dollar amounts because I'm over right now. I pay for more staff than I actually have money allotted to me right now. And so I
Hmm.
went in just thinking, okay, where is this amount of money? Because we're not talking about like a couple $1,000s. We're talking, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Hmm.
And so, of course, that directly went to a staff member. And then I went through and thought about the roles and responsibilities of staff members and tried to see where those things may overlap. So, some of those things, for example, that the social worker takes care of is like what we call our care team. But also on the care team, we have the MTSS coordinator, we have a person who's a community member, we have the counselor. So we already have multiple people taking care of that responsibility. So when I thought about that, I thought, okay, the MTS coordinator could continue to take care of that responsibility, but the social worker could not take care of a 504. So a 504 is what the MTSS coordinator is responsible for. And so I tried to just see what responsibilities we could feasibly cover as a staff at Perkerson.
That's understood. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Will we be able to continue like different things that the social worker has put in place, like maybe like some partnerships they have, or connections to different companies that does things for our school? Like I know there was one week where students were receiving shoes, and then I know that sometimes kids get back. Our particular social worker will say if we get new kids and they need backpacks or school supplies, like will we still be able to have those things in place even with a shared?
That's a great
Um,
question, Ms. Walker. Yes, ma'am. Actually, your the two examples that you gave, I'll speak to them directly. So the shoes this year, that was one as I said, I was thinking about how responsibilities were covered by multiple people. So this year, actually, the school secretary and the school counselor really spearheaded the work around the shoes coming to our school for those students. And then the social worker was just responsible more for the distribution of the shoes, but that's something that we can easily figure out how to make sure that the kids who are getting the shoes actually get them to take them home. Um, the jackets that somebody called and said, "Hey, we have jackets," and typically, if that happens, we send them to either the counselor or to the social worker to go ahead and work out the logistics of getting those items here. But in the past, when I was first here for the first several years that I was a principal at Perkerson, we didn't have a social worker, and I did that. So I definitely think we can continue to cover that responsibility. But also, we will still have a social worker. She just won't be here as frequently.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure we don't fall
Yeah.
short. Okay.
Yeah. Great questions, guys. Thank you so much. Anything else? Is there anyone who is really opposed to us going to a 50% social worker? I don't think we need to take an official vote on this, but I do want to make sure that all voices have been heard. But one thing I would really ask you all is please, 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 please do not leave this meeting and discuss these conversations with the rest of our staff. Please don't do that. It will really cause more harm than good. So please, at this time, I'm asking you to please keep this information confidential.
Mr. Ford, is there any other options?
That is option one. I'm going to tell you what option two is. Option two is not the best option, I think. I'm going to say that off the bat, but it is an option. The district has given us some flexibility with positions, and another position that they've given some flexibility with is the media specialist position. What we could do as option B is we could, well, first of all, the social worker alone still won't cover everything that we need to cover. So I want to make sure I'm clear about that. But second, we could not have a media specialist, have a media specialist paraprofessional, which is about $100,000 saving. And that is another option. I will say that one I'm not as comfortable with, but I do want to present it because it is another option.
So pretty much if plan B was to work, the person will be between the media center and whatever other duties they supposed to be taking on.
No, we would not have a media specialist at all. We would have a media specialist para. Um, the 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 media specialist pair would just be somebody who would be in the media center who could help us with children checking books in and out.
Mhm.
The thing about the current media specialist is that the current media specialist is able to take on, like, again, I was thinking about the coverage of responsibilities. We have a lot of technology needs.
Mhm.
We would need someone who was able to I haven't figured out how we would still take on those responsibilities. That's a part of my reservation about that.
So this will be so not so will this be an option for like all the areas that we're talking about cutting, or just
Say it again, Mom.
would this be an option for all the positions that we're talking about cutting, or this would just be for the media center?
This is really like these are places where I thought we could make a change and it
Oh,
would give us some funding back to help cover some of the overage.
okay. Okay.
What is the overage that
Well,
you're trying to make up? What is the
right,
deficit you're trying to make up?
right now we're at about $87,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so and that is so what I've shown you on these summary tabs is just the bare bones of a staff, right? Like this many teachers, I felt like we definitely wanted to have sufficient amount of teachers. This many specials teachers, special ed, paraprofessionals, just the bare bones. But even with that, I'm over not about $87,000.
Okay,
Are
so
you
that
open?
one, I'm sorry, I was going to say that one social worker's position would take care of that 87,000.
The one social worker position plus there is a line that I found um, that says like school and something field trips, and on that line was $11,000. So if I add those two things together, that would be enough.
Okay, yeah, because you're still going to have a part-time social worker or 2.5 hours.
Right. I would have
Two,
two
two
and
and
a
a
half
half
days
days.
of a
Yeah.
social worker. Right.
Okay. All right.
And what does that field trip line do for our budget?
It is I think it's like $11,000, and basically, if I use that money plus the money that I would get back from the social worker, from having a part-time social worker, we would have enough to cover the overage
Without
So
touching the media specialist?
without touching the media specialist.
when we have district funded field trips, that doesn't hit in that
Right. That's the
line.
reason. Exactly. That's the reason why I selected that line.
So the students would still have an opportunity for a district funded field trip.
Right. They would still have the CEP trips every year.
And then
And
if
then
there
other
was
things, if
something,
we were to fundraise or we have partners or
right,
any of those things, we could
right,
still do those things.
right. That makes a lot of sense then. Because our
Was there a
media
plan
special,
C
oh,
or
sorry.
just A and B?
All I can think of right now, Ms. Holmes, is plan A and B. There are 4,999 lines on this budget for real. Like that's not a made up number. And so all I have done is look at these very tiny numbers for the past 2 weeks.
And our media specialist would also have the option that, I mean, because she is a certified teacher, that if we needed some support, she's also able to help us. Am I correct?
Right. And then also think about like if when we have computer issues, if Michael is not here, who do we call?
We do call her,
Media
but
specialist.
we called her, but I was just pointing out that she can help proctor because she does hold a teaching certificate. She can help proctor if we have tests, or she could fill in, if we had an emergency and needed someone, for, so I think protecting that position is a good idea.
All right. Well, so what I'm proposing is that we not, we would, what this does also is we get to keep both positions. We get to keep the media specialist position. We get to keep the social worker position, but we would keep the social worker position at a 0.5 and just share her with Finch Elementary School or him, whoever it is.
Is Finch Elementary School, you talked to the principal, I assume, of Finch
Absolutely.
Elementary School, and y'all have planned this.
Right. Right.
Because we don't want to think about this and then they back out of it.
Right.
Have they had their go team meeting? Is that an option for them?
I don't know when their go team meeting is scheduled, but I do know that this won't be even if you all approve it, if their go team does not approve it, then it will not be approved.
So if their go team does not approve it, then
I'm back at the drawing board.
but they have the same deadline as we do, which is by tomorrow, correct?
Right. Right.
Okay. Well, then we just need to hope and pray that they approve it.
We do. Lots of prayers. Everyone who prays, I would appreciate it. So, are you all okay with the social worker idea?
I am.
Yes.
Do we need to call for a vote, an official vote on this, or?
I don't think we need to call for a vote. I just kind of want to get some feedback from you all.
Okay.
Well,
I agree.
Sounds like you thought it out really well. So yeah, I support it.
Thank you, guys. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is what's called the non-staffing tab. So what you looked at just now was all of the actual personnel. Within that same budget, I also have to pay for some things that are called non-staffing items. And those non-staffing items are like substitute teachers, materials and supplies, paper, ink, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to take a look at that now. The first line is what the district has placed in reserve. So that amount of money that's there is left in the event that we get to leveling and I don't have enough kids. That's the first place that they would pull from. The good news is that if we get enough kids, then after leveling is finished, they'll give me that amount of money. Ms. Morgan, if you look down at line 28, that's the amount I was talking about.
I
Everyone
see
see?
it.
Yeah, that is the amount of money that I will be taking and placing with that other amount of money to cover the rest of our overage. And then right underneath that, materials and supplies, I've placed $15,000 on there. That's for the entire year. That seems like a lot of money, but I just want to be clear, it is not.
That is not a lot of money.
That is a fifth of what I'm used to having in materials and supply.
So it sounds like materials and supplies are definitely gonna be in need for next school's
You know, we'll have
term.
to think a little bit about using our materials and supplies wisely.
Is that part of where we have copy paper in that
Oh,
line?
yeah.
Or
Yes, yes. Copy paper, pencils, crayons, everything that the children need to do everything that they do, but also like, paying for stamps and paying for, postage when we do the Title I nights, all of that comes from that line. But, we are in $100 million deficit. So we are at a place where everyone's gonna have to tighten up a little bit and think a little differently. Teachers, I just got an email about like ink, for example. There will no longer be, how you could just call in and receive a refill on your ink. At the end of this school year, that service will stop.
So supposedly that's going to stop at the end of the school year. It
Yes,
hasn't
ma'am.
already happened because I'm still waiting on some ink.
It should not have already happened, but I can talk to Ms. Linda Allen Freeman, who sent me the email, but it's supposed to stop at the end of the year.
All right.
Any questions about the non-staffing tab? For media supplies, you can see that first line where there it says $2,400. And then it's still in parentheses because I didn't put any money for media supplies. So next year, we would not be able to buy like any new books or anything like that for next year. In the past, I've purchased a lot of things for the media center, but for next year, we're going to have to hold off on that. If you take a look at line 93, that amount was predetermined by the district. That's the amount of money needed to cover for subs. In the past, I've been able to kind of work with that number. This upcoming year, we were not allowed that box will not allow me to make any moves. So that amount of money is the amount of money that the district requires that I put aside to pay for subs at our school. And also, we will no longer have, this year we had two in-person permanent subs. So they had two subs that just came to the building every single day. Next year, we will not have those two positions. Any questions? All right, so the next tab is about signature and turnover. So basically, with signature and turnover, turnaround, signature and turnaround funding, we had to make requests for signature and turnaround funding of what we wanted. signature program. We were a STEM school, so that was around, materials and supplies for STEM, as well as a STEM um, lab person. And then for turnaround, because we're on the ATSI list, funding for positions to support the work of improving our performance so that we are no longer on that list. So um, basically, um, we had to make a request this year. In the past, the money was given to us. That was another place where we lost a lot of funding to start with. Um, so my request for signature funding would be to continue to have a STEM lab person, as well as some additional funding for materials and supplies. I did not receive the additional funding for materials and supplies, but I was able to use some of that signature funding to fund. Remember, I showed you guys earlier, wanted you to pay attention to the .8 in the world language teacher, art teacher. I was able to use some of the signature funding to pay for that .2. So with the signature funding, I paid for a STEM specialist. Um, and we also use it to pay for a world language teacher. All right. So at this time, our action is for the Go team to vote on the draft budget. Ms. Bixler, unless you all have any other questions for me.
Mr. Ford, so we'll vote on this and then you present this
I will present this to the cluster superintendent and the HR strategic director.
And then they will provide any feedback, and would that be then an opportunity that you either let us know we need to meet again, or do they make the changes and then we go from whatever changes they recommend?
Yeah, typically we don't need to meet again after that. After you all approve it, we will take this before them, and then they'll make any final changes that need to be made, because they, of course, have the final say with all of this. But at this point, after we vote on this, I will present what we have created, and then we will go from there.
Well, Ms. Bixler, I say we could go ahead and call for a vote.
Okay, but I mean, I'm looking for that in this script. So do we just need to make a motion to accept the change that we vote on the change of a half a social worker?
I think we vote on
The acceptance
just to
of the
approve the
budget
budget.
in its entirety.
Okay.
So Ms. Morgan, you could make a motion, and then someone could second it.
Right.
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve the budget as proposed by Principal Ford for the 25-26 school year.
I second that
Second.
motion.
Okay. All of those in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed, say nay or raise your hand. Any abstentions? Identify yourselves and raise your hand or raise your hand. Okay.
Ms. Fixer, if you could just say whether the budget is approved or not.
Okay. So the
As
budget is
proposed.
approved for the 25-26 school year.
Excellent.
All
All right,
right. So
guys.
do I not need to finish the rest of this budget allocation meeting script?
I believe we took care of the different elements on it.
Everything? Okay. All right. So we're ready to adjourn?
All right. So the next part of our discussion is just some information items.
Oh, okay.
So we have just a couple of things that I want to talk to you guys about. One is our Go team is incomplete right now. We are still looking for another parent representative, and we are also looking for another community member to join Pastor Poole. So if you all have any suggestions for anyone who might fit those criteria, please let me know so that I can reach out to them to see if they may be interested. Because right now our Go team is incomplete, and those are all of the things that I have.
I did speak with a mom, with muffins and moms. I didn't get her name, but I did mention it to her. I didn't speak on nothing that we speak of. I just told her, to find out more or to put in your suggestion of what about things that can possibly happen with the school. To talk to you about if she wanted to join the Go team. I pretty much left it up to her to speak with you about it. Like I said, I didn't get
Thank
her
you.
name, but I did mention to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, listen, I need you to figure out who she is so I can talk to her.
I know the funny part about it, I know her face. I just did not get her name, and I don't even know what grade her baby in. So if I see her again, I would definitely just bring her to you, cause
Okay, okay. All right, good, good, good. Okay, yeah, so we definitely need a parent representative and a community member. So if you guys, thank you, Ms. Muhammad. If you guys know anyone, let me know. All right, if that's it, Ms. Bixler, I believe that you can.
Okay.
We have to make a motion to adjourn, or I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
We have reached the end of our agenda. Is there any additional business at this time? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. This is working. I make a motion to adjourn.
A
I
second?
second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? All opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? Please raise your hand. Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
You guys are the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
evening,
you.
everyone.
Have a good
You're
evening.
Good
welcome.
Bye-bye.
evening.
bye.